Good day, everyone. On behalf of BioIT World's Global Web Symposia Series and our sponsor, DWise Technologies, I'd like to welcome you to how to deploy a secure, compliant, cloud-based SAS clinical computing platform in 24 hours. My name is Elizabeth Lamb, and I'm the technical director for today's event. Now I'd like to introduce John Lavelle, CEO and co-founder of DWise Technologies. Welcome, John.
Thanks a lot, Elizabeth. Well, welcome, everyone. We're pleased to have you here and to be able to tell you about our clinical acceleration platform offering. We've got a few different speakers here today. It will be myself. It'll be Heath Clayton from SAS, Senior Development Specialist from SAS. And then for the meat of the presentation, it'll be Stephen Baker, Senior Client Engagement Manager from DWise. So welcome once again. For the last 15 years, DWise has been working with pharma and biotech clients to enable your workforce to achieve greater levels of capability and efficiency. Our consulting advisory services that are delivered by DWise team members that have decades of clinical trials business knowledge have given us a really nice opportunity to listen deeply to your challenges and needs. That experience of listening deeply was really the genesis for the clinical acceleration platform solution that you're going to hear about in this webinar today. We've heard you say that you depend on SAS and other tools like R, that you need to get up and running quickly, that you need a packaged solution. So that message that you've sent to DWise is really clear. Enable us to get our work done. And another way of saying that is, we need a place to analyze our data, and we need it now. So we took that core message of enabling you as rapidly as possible, and we worked with our partners at SAS to determine how to understand how SAS software can be packaged inside of our offering. The Managed Analytics Service Provider, or MASP program from SAS, is a program that enables us to combine what SAS and DWise have each developed into a single offering so that you're buying one clinical acceleration platform. Now, I'd like to introduce Heath Clayton, Senior Business Development Specialist at SAS, to say a few words about the MASP program.
Thank you, John. From a SAS perspective, DWise has been a trusted partner of ours for almost 15 years. DWise is one of our top partners in HLS, and in fact, earlier this month at SAS Global Forum, SAS awarded them the Regional Partner of the Year in the United States. So I'm really excited to have DWise as a part of the SAS Managed Analytics Service Provider Program, or MASP, as John said, and to bring this fit-for-purpose solution to their pharma and biotech customers. In today's world, both analytics and speed are critical, and DWise's clinical acceleration platform delivers both of those and is the essence of the MASP program. So I'll let Stephen provide you with a bunch of the details on this.
So good morning. My name is Stephen Baker. I appreciate John and Heath and Elizabeth kicking us off. I'm a client engagement manager at DWise, and my role is to work with clients like you all in life sciences. I actually see some familiar faces on the attendee list to help to deliver solutions inside of the clinical life cycle. And as John mentioned, DWise has been doing this for a long time. I'm really excited to talk about the solution that we're introducing today and to eventually tell you about a couple of case studies for our early adopter clients who have helped us bring this to market. By way of an agenda, most of what you're going to hear about today is what is the clinical acceleration platform. You're going to hear about why it's a good fit-for-purpose solution for different types of organizations in life sciences, what it does, how we use it, what's the value. We're going to get into some case studies, and as Elizabeth mentioned at the end, we're going to field your questions, hopefully be able to remove some ambiguity or address some areas of concern. So as we get started here, I don't want you to have to wait too long to hear in detail what the clinical acceleration platform is. But many of you have been using SAS for your entire careers, or your teams have been using SAS either to receive data, put it into a CDISC format, to perform some analysis, to generate some TLFs. It's a fundamental part of the fabric of the clinical data lifecycle. Now, maybe you're fortunate enough to just be an end user of SaaS. But at a more macro level, a life sciences company has to negotiate a SaaS license. They have to figure out budgetary considerations, figure out the demand for SaaS, how many people, how many studies. They've got to get hardware in place, come up with a validation plan. They've got to execute an installation and hope that they've built it in a scalable way that'll grow with the business. It's a very complex thing. SaaS is an expert system. And DWise, having built systems for clients for the last 15 years, has the benefit of understanding the best practices, how to deliver a SaaS system that can be performant for the user, reliable for the user, and scalable for the business. It's important to design a system that way at the beginning to avoid pain points later on. And that's what the Clinical Acceleration Platform offers you right out of the gate. The Clinical Acceleration Platform is quite simply a compliant SaaS environment designed by SaaS experts to provide turnkey validation and literally have you live in 24 hours. It's a cloud-based solution, and what that means is it is not stored or run on-premise behind your firewall. It's an offering that DWise hosts and provides for you. It's built using industry-standard first-class methodologies and practices, so your data is stored securely, it's private, it's backed up, and ready for recovery. The entire platform is built under a validation model that allows you to accelerate what is usually quite a burdensome phase of delivering systems inside of life sciences. And it's supported by our managed services desk, which includes a global team of experts who know how to administer a SaaS environment and answer the questions an end user might have, which can save an organization from the burden of having to have an internal staff for SaaS administration or for SaaS help desk sort of capabilities. It's platform as a service in a first-class sense, delivered around the notion of a validated environment for life sciences to provide the tools you need. So what are those tools? As Heath and John mentioned, DWise and SaaS have partnered up in the MASP program. What does that mean for you guys? What that means is historically where you've had to go out and negotiate with SaaS to secure a license, and then maybe negotiate with hardware vendors to buy computers or deal with IT to establish networking and connectivity, DWise can bundle all of that together for you with a SaaS license already included. So in a single transaction, you can come to DWise and get an environment that has a SaaS license already in play. And you can pay for that as a platform purchase. And SaaS is not the only solution that this environment includes, because we know on a day-to-day basis, data management users, clinical associates, biostatisticians, they need more tools. SaaS is an important part of the puzzle, but it's not the only part. The Microsoft Office suite is a very common day-to-day application that people would use. Increasingly, people are adopting R for certain portions of their business. Many times, outputs and inputs are Adobe files, PDFs, so we need the ability to open and close those. And for many of you, CDISC has become a reality or has been a reality for some time. And Pinnacle 21, which until recently was called Open CDISC, is a platform for verifying compliance of data sets with the CDISC standards. And all of these are common tools inside of the clinical lifecycle, and our platform comes online on day one with all of these tools in place and all the familiar things you would expect in a Windows environment, like a browser and file shares and all of the other things that you have in a common Windows environment. The platform includes all of these things validated on day one. What's important to understand here is that many of you are using environments today that were built by a team or a group of people over a number of years or a number of months. And this clinical acceleration platform is a way to offload that burden when it comes time to either scale your environment or take on new capabilities. We've built it, as I mentioned, to bundle tools that everyone needs, but by providing it with a managed services component, we limit the need for additional personnel, SaaS administration, and help desk. We reduce the cost and the risk of bringing the infrastructure online because we have used the expertise developed over the last 15 years to build a modularized environment that we can literally bring online in 24 hours. It's very common that a SaaS installation, a build project might take 3, 6, sometimes as many as 12 months. So to be able to bring this environment online in 24 hours after contracting is an amazing efficiency. And it more importantly, reduces the risk in timelines and in effectiveness of bringing an environment online that will grow with you over time. This environment is a turnkey solution. It requires no installation, no integration on your part. Much like many platform services you might consume from vendors in this space, the clinical acceleration platform is intended to fit right into your infrastructure without integration. And as a consequence, it's going to provide a pretty substantial opportunity for return on investment as you continue to use SaaS and continue to grow. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see a comment that says there's an ability to expand the initial tool set. I previously mentioned SaaS, R, Office, Pinnacle 21, and Adobe. These are the tools that come in the environment on day one, but this environment is yours. It's your clinical acceleration platform. DWise welcomes you to make it your own. If you'd like to add additional tools, text editors, other analysis packages, anything you might need to get your work done, this is not a closed system. DWise is providing you platform as a service, and what that means is this is a validated environment that you can add things to beyond the standard offering that would be unique to your way of doing business. So there's no constraints to prevent you from growing with this platform and turning it again to part of your operating fabric. So having introduced the concept, who do we design this environment for? And how is it offered? Primarily, there's 3 audiences we're after. So emerging pharma and biotech, contract research organizations or CROs, and then the larger pharma and biotech. We've compartmentalized it into 3 groups here because the needs in these 3 audiences are very different. Emerging pharma and biotech are using SaaS because, as throughout the industry, it's the de facto platform for clinical analysis and for submission. In most cases, emerging pharma and biotech have a limited number of studies, maybe a small user population, but they tend to have needs that change quickly. We move from 1 study to 3 studies to 10. And as we approach a submission or we approach an exit opportunity, it's important to have an environment that can scale quickly. So for emerging pharma and biotech clients, the clinical acceleration platform is available on a study-based or user-based pricing model to fit neatly into the way that they're doing business. Contract research organizations have a little bit different paradigm. They're a service provider and have multiple pharma, sponsors, biotechs, et cetera, as clients. Each of those clients has different studies. They might even be providing services at different points in the life cycle. And what they need is an environment that can quickly scale to take on additional client business and can allow their users to seamlessly move across those environments. So for contract research organizations, we've got a solution that can provide collaboration capabilities and can be licensed in either a multi-party manner, study-based manner, or a user-based manner. And for the larger entities in this space, the big pharma, the large biotech, the needs are a little different. Clearly, these audiences already have a robust SaaS computing environment, but from time to time, due to data acquisition or divestiture, or due to the desire to work in a collaborative fashion with another sponsor, or maybe just because there's an accelerated study activity that needs to take place quickly that the existing systems just don't have the capacity to tolerate, the clinical acceleration platform has been shaped for them to provide burst capacity solutions, multi-sponsor collaboration solutions where 2 or 3 sponsors could work together in a common environment. And also to provide an environment that's not behind your firewall and therefore could be accessible in an acquisition or divestiture scenario to let you get data assets to or from a buyer or a seller and quickly get into the diligence cycle by virtue of having a shared platform, as opposed to having to build one and expose one behind your own firewalls. So again, we've introduced the concept. The Clinical Acceleration Platform is a compliant SaaS environment designed by SaaS experts, provides turnkey validation, and is ready in 24 hours. We've talked a lot about what it is. I'm going to tell you on the next few slides about what's under the covers. So as a cloud-based platform, this solution provides a rapid deployment option. By the time we finish reviewing terms and signing paperwork, DWise can have you live literally in 24 hours. And when you go live, you'll have Microsoft Office, you'll have SaaS, you'll have R, you'll have Pinnacle 21, and you'll have Adobe. You'll have file storage, user management. You'll have a fully secure environment with encrypted data storage and backup and data transfer. And because it's provided on the cloud, it's globally accessible. Even if your team is not co-located in Cambridge or San Francisco, because this is a web-delivered solution, users from India to California can get online and collaborate in the exact same platform. It's fully managed as a platform by DWise for you, which means your investment internally in IT resources and in hardware assets is completely eliminated, which can provide a dramatic cost efficiency when you think about the overhead of keeping a critical piece of functionality like SaaS available for the business. We're going to talk about validation a little bit more in a minute. But again, remember, this is a fully validated environment. We know that you have to work in a validated construct. It's clearly not optional. DWise has been building validated systems for a long time. We've taken that burden off your hands here. So validation is offered as a service inside of this platform. And that service means that when you go live, everything you need for validation is already in place. And since it's designed with DWise's expertise, the environment is ready to grow. If you have 5 users, 50 users, or 500 users, we know what the configuration and the size is that matches your usage profile. And we know how to design a system that as you grow can scale with you instead of having to be re-implemented due to the fact that the demand has changed. And that's critical because if you don't have a scalable system that's flexible, you face business interruption when it comes time to grow. And when it comes time to grow, business interruption is the last thing you need. It's the wrong time to be starting over. For those of you that have a more technical background, this is an architecture topology that will give you a little color about how the system actually exists in terms of components and where. For those of you with a less technical background, let me orient you to what you see here. So on the left, we have 2 Windows-based desktop computers. This could be your laptop. This could be a third-party staff augmentation resource you've hired. This is someone who is logging into the system. At the bottom, you see a disk, a mapped drive. This is your storage. These are things that you already have outside of our systems. The Clinical Acceleration Platform is on the right. There's 2 instances, a prod server and a val server, consistent with how regulation deems we must think about validation. There's storage that can be mapped externally as well. And the entire interface is wrapped in a VPN tunnel. And for those unfamiliar with VPN, this is a secure technology that allows us to have a network connection that prevents your data from being exposed on the World Wide Web. So these external users log into a VPN connection into one of these environments, the prod server or the val server. They get a remote desktop connection back on their laptop. And on that desktop, they're able to do the same things you've been doing for years. Launch SaaS, browse files, change folder permissions, write Word documents, read PDFs, run some R code, use Pinnacle 21 to validate your CDISC data. All the things you're doing today are accessible to you because those applications are surfaced through remote desktop. And much like your internal systems where you might have network attached storage, an F drive or an S drive mapped to your local laptop, that's shared by multiple people, you can map the drives both from your internal systems and from the clinical acceleration platform back and forth as if they were on your internal network. And that's possible because the VPN connection creates a tunnel as if the environment was hosted locally for you. We've talked a lot about validation. The next couple of slides, we're going to talk a little bit more. Inside of life sciences, the FDA has given us some guidance. It's been in place for a long time that tells us when we have systems that deal with clinical assets that are part of a submission, they have to be built and managed in a very specific way. The approach to doing that and the process is important. And it's important that it not only be done right, but that it stand up to the rigor of outside testing and an audit. We want to know the systems we built are functional and do what they're supposed to, and that we can trust that that process proves as such. As I mentioned, DWise has been in the business of building these systems the entire time we've been in business. For 15 years, we've been helping clients navigate the validation lifecycle with SaaS and with other tools, starting all the way from the design and construction of a validation plan to the execution of a release memo, development and execution of IQ and OQ. And as a consequence, we have a library of templates that are curated over the process of us doing this for years and years that allow us to give you a fit-for-purpose turnkey validation solution. If you've been fortunate or unfortunate, depending on your perspective, of having to build a validated system in the past, this life cycle might look familiar. When the business decides a validated SaaS system is needed, what they really want to do is start using it. They don't really want to build it. They don't really want to validate it. They really want it to be available so they can use it. But in order to get there, there's this lengthy process of budgeting, negotiating, procuring hardware, designing a system, producing volumes of documentation that must be reviewed, and then executing an installation, testing the installation, signing off on a variety of documentations, and then finally, the business can use the system that they needed days, weeks, or months before. And what this slide is meant to illustrate is that if the business needs a SaaS system and the business is considering working with DWise to adopt our clinical acceleration platform, you get to bypass every bit of that. You sign up with DWise, adopt the clinical acceleration platform, and you can adopt our system tomorrow and be prepared to accept a validated SaaS system. For those of you who have a validation background, there's a variety of documents that are produced in this process that help to demonstrate the system was implemented under a controlled process and that it met the expectations of testing. This graphic is just meant to illustrate that DWise provides a number of these documents right out of the box. When you go live on day one, these files are already available inside of your environment. And as would be common with any platform as a service, you as a client will still need to do a couple of things, but you get to skip 90% of the headache. So what do you need to do? You need to be prepared to do end user testing. It should be performance qualification or UAT. And this is consistent with the way regulation drives us to build systems. DWise takes on the burden of ensuring the system is built right, and you as the end user do final testing, PQ or UAT, to make sure that you've documented on your side a minimal amount of testing took place as well. And DWise can provide templates for the minimal amount of testing you're going to need to do, and we can also provide consulting services to help you execute it, because some clients have a more involved validation process than others. But when you sign up with DWise to adopt the clinical acceleration platform, a validation plan, a requirement spec, a design spec, IQ and an OQ, and the requirements trace matrix are available to you immediately. You don't have to write them. You don't have to approve them. You don't have to deal with quality to understand the templates. DWise has these processes, and they're available right out of the box. We've been using this term platform as a service throughout this presentation. I want to take a minute to talk a little bit about what that means. You can get a lot of applications, software as a service. For example, you might be at a firm where Box.com is used for storage, or Metadata Rave is used for EDC. And these are software provided as a service. You can go in and use the tool, but that's all you can do is use the tool. Platform as a service is a fundamentally different concept. It's an environment that you can do a variety of things in. DWise has built it to be scalable and reliable, to be rapidly deployable and validated, to have high expertise behind the design, to have the support you need to keep it online and to make sure everything is secure. It comes online with a handful of tools: SAS, R, Microsoft Office, Pinnacle 21, and Adobe. But that's just where it starts. As a platform, the scalability, the reliability, the expertise that's behind the design, the security, these things stay with you as you scale. If you need the environment to get bigger, you can make it bigger. If you need the environment to include another tool, we can add another tool. If you want to move additional applications, capabilities you have internally over for modeling and simulation users, or for medical writing users, or for visualization users, we welcome those tools on our platform as well. This is platform as a system, platform as a service rather, not software as a service and not a closed system. And that's important because the business and life sciences and the science behind it changes rapidly. And the application landscape you're going to need evolves just as fast. So putting a platform in place that can't grow with you sets you up for challenges immediately. We've been hearing, as John mentioned, from our clients for years that what we need is we need to quickly get online with the tools we need and be able to use them. Not so much install them, not so much manage them, just use them. And this platform is intended to be fit for purpose for that exact need. And to complement this rich platform of capabilities, we've provided a fully managed service. Fully managed services means that DWise provides administrative support, end user support, and tech support concierge. Now, admin support is something you probably get from IT today. But what this means is you have people on the other end of the phone who understand everything from the hardware to the operating system to the applications to the security. We can help you navigate the entire stack and understand how to administer your system. We can even do it for you. We also have people who have worked in the functions you guys support, either as biostatistical programmers working at a CRO, perhaps as statisticians working at a pharma, maybe as data managers at a biotech. Each of these folks will have questions about how to use SAS, how to do the work they do on a daily basis. These are end user questions, business user questions. Our team, having been business users, can field these. Oftentimes, people will have to set up a help desk, or 2 or 3 expert people in the group will wind up fielding lots of questions. And DWise fully managed service allows you to relieve that burden from the organization. You can bring your administrative support questions and your business user support questions right to us. And tech support concierge is a concept that DWise provides that's really unique. As Heath and John mentioned, we've been partners. DWise has been partners with SAS for 15 years. Many of our team are actually SAS alumni, myself included. We know the folks over there very well. We have a great working relationship with SAS. And occasionally, you're going to have problems with SAS software where you actually need to route a ticket all the way back to SAS itself for tech support. It's not often, but it does happen. And as we mentioned before, SAS being an expert system, you might need to know everything from the hardware to the operating system all the way up to the network to be able to explain and provide the details needed to remediate a problem with the software. DWise will take care of every bit of that for you. So if you need to open tickets with SAS because of application problems, you'll get to depend on DWise to help concierge those tickets through to closure. And we provide that same expertise for other vendors that you might introduce applications from into our platform, like Pinnacle 21. So before we get to the tail end of the presentation, I want to transition from what the system is to talking about a couple of reference case studies where people have actually used it. Now, we've talked about the system being available quickly, it being scalable, it being provided by DWise as opposed to your internal teams and systems. And we've talked about who that's meant for. So in terms of reference case studies, we've got 2 examples here. One that's about submission readiness, one that's about modernization. Submission readiness is a case study that speaks about time and the value of time. Now, this client, when I started talking with them, was on their way to a submission. And on the way to the submission, they brought on some new talent, some new structure, most obviously some people in quality and compliance to deal with the fact that they were facing a couple of audits. Those audits told them that their legacy systems, the desktop SaaS environments they had, kind of built in an ad hoc fashion and really didn't stand up to the rigor of what's expected of validation. And that's a giant red flag on the way to a submission. The business needed a system that would stand up to the rigors of being audited for validation. How is this system going to be proved compliant? They needed it quickly because the timeline for submission was already in flight. And they needed it to be delivered without interrupting the business because time is already short and people are working long hours. And if they have a massive transition to take on as well, it's going to slow everything down. Now, certainly the client could have tried to build this internally, but given the resources they had, and that you having heard a little bit about the environment they were working in, they really had neither the time nor the expertise to go about building an environment themselves that could be right. And given the timeline pressure and the importance of this platform for a submission, they also couldn't afford for it to be wrong. They needed it fast, they needed it right, they needed it to be easy. And what they ended up doing was adopting the clinical acceleration platform literally in days. The clinical acceleration platform was something that their audit group took a look at on the way to adoption. Lots of smiles were on the faces of the people around the compliance team because it addressed the findings they were trying to remediate. Because adoption is so transparent and the systems are familiar, it's a Windows-based SaaS compute analysis environment, they were able to adopt it with very minimal business interruption. People got in and started using the environment on day one, moving some data and code in on day two, and they were functional on day three. The second case study we have here is about modernization. This one is less about the time benefit and more about the future-proofing benefit. So this client was a larger but still mid-sized sponsor. They had moved from desktop SaaS to a server, but over the last few years they had had constant challenges with keeping the environment stable, growing as they acquired new employees and took on new studies. And as they were beginning to consider opportunities for an exit, the new management had established a cloud-first strategy, meaning that when they come to work every day, they want to focus on the science of delivering drugs, not on the business of managing IT. And so in every opportunity, they were trying to find an answer that could allow them to outsource things that were not their core competency. Hosting of an email server, hosting of a chat server, hosting of their SaaS server. When they started thinking about how to modernize their environment, they had a choice of investing in new hardware, putting it in a data center, getting an IT admin to hook it all together, to do a design, to do a build, to do validation, the same thing we saw in that life cycle before. But the CIO, under this cloud-first mandate, really just wanted to go from I need a system to I have a system. Let the business use SaaS instead of manage SaaS. And so they signed up to use DWise's clinical acceleration platform as well. And as I mentioned in that case, historically they'd had a lot of challenges with their SaaS environment as their needs changed, as new users came online, as they took on new studies and the demand over a given period changed. It resulted in a really suboptimal configuration as they made a change here and a change here, and nothing was ever considered holistically. So when they adopted our platform, designed by DWise's experts who have decades of experience and know the best practices for setting SaaS up to be highly performant, we have a quote here that they gave us about a week after they'd started using the system, where they were saying that tasks they used to do on their desktops, where they used to run for a whole day, where sometimes those tasks would fail and they'd have to start over and be delayed another day, are now finishing in less than half an hour. And you've got to wonder, how is that possible? It's a 16 times increase in efficiency. How could it be that fast? And the reason is that SaaS is an expert system. SaaS is very dependent on I/O, memory and storage, and the compute nature of the application needs to be configured correctly. If you design those things correctly out of the gate, you can get an amazingly high performance environment. And if you don't know how to design them correctly out of the gate, you can quickly start losing the ability to run as fast as you could. And when you have that problem permeated over 2, 3, 4 years and supporting first 10 and then 15 and then 20 and then 30 users, they manifest in a dramatic way and everybody's productivity declines. So when they transitioned to our system that was built to scale and designed to perform, they were literally able to take day-long activities and shorten them to something that could complete while they were out to lunch. It's a pretty compelling experience. So before we get into the Q&A portion of this, some of you might be wondering what's the next step. DWise would like you to think about signing up with us. If you would like to sign up with DWise, we have standard terms we can provide you to review. And the minute we get through a contracting phase, we can have you live tomorrow. We have 4 different plans that are aligned to the different needs you might have. We can do pricing that is study-based or pricing that's user-based. And these 2 models fit very well for emerging biotechs and pharma. And they also fit pretty well for large pharma who have an out-of-the-norm need. The other 2 pricing models we have are for burst capacity and multi-party collaboration. Well, multi-party collaboration is a very interesting concept. Generally, when you build a SaaS environment, it's for internal use. It's very hard to make that environment accessible for another sponsor who might also have their own SaaS environment, or 3 sponsors, or 5. Very challenging to do. This same situation exists in acquisition and divestiture scenarios where we're trying to hand data off between a buyer and a seller. How do you create a multi-party environment that has the tools you need to do the things that happen in the clinical lifecycle? We have a pricing plan that aligns to that need exactly. It's called our multi-party collaboration plan. And burst capacity is a whole different concept. So the 3 things we talked about already, study-based, user-based, and multi-party collaboration, these are for business we need to do today, business we can predict maybe needing to do tomorrow. Burst capacity is about preparing for things we can't anticipate. Maybe for some reason an internal system fails. Hardware ages out. Corruption in the software environment causes things to go sideways. Maybe recovery doesn't bring it back to where you need it to be. Maybe you just have a situation where you need expanded capacity because you just acquired another company and you've got 25 new users. Burst capacity is intended to provide that. This is a short-term but immediately available SaaS environment where you can come online without having to think about something that might last 1, 2, 3, or 5 years. Maybe you just need it for 90 days. Maybe you need it for 6 months. That's burst capacity, and DWise can provide that using the MASP program. So if you'd like to talk to us, DWise would like to talk to you. We're going to be at BioIT World in about 4 weeks in Boston. We're also going to be having a handful of regional events in Cambridge, in DC, in Chicago, in San Francisco. We're going to come to your town and talk about this again, let you network with some of your peers and talk about how they're solving the need to deliver SaaS to the business. And we'd be happy to come visit you if you'd like to have us come talk to your team about whether or not this is a fit-for-purpose solution that makes sense. So you'll be able to follow on our website the regional events as they get announced, and you'll be able to sign up. And if you happen to be in Boston in May, we'll be at our booth and glad to talk to you as well. This brings us to the close of the presentation. We're getting ready to start the Q&A, and the panelists are going to help me to navigate the questions that have been coming in on chat. So you might hear some voices kicking off here in a second. But as we start that dialogue, I just kind of want to take us back to where we started. DWise has been supporting clients for 15 years, and our team collectively has hundreds of years of experience in the industry. We may have even installed the SaaS environment you're using today. And through that experience, we've learned that what people really need is an analysis environment that is easy to adopt, quickly available, managed in the context of validation, and can grow with them. They want to be able to use an environment, not be bothered with building and managing an environment. The end game here is just to have an analysis environment they can depend on. And we built the clinical acceleration platform in collaboration with SAS to provide exactly that need with a solution as a fully managed platform as a service. We can have you live in 24 hours. We'll have you validated. You'll have the security that you would expect from such a critical system. It'll be reliable, scalable. It'll have backup and recovery, everything you would need out of the box. And it can grow with you. It can grow to support more users, more applications, or both. It's not a closed system. It's yours, and we encourage you to use it in whatever manner best suits your business. So we'll land on this slide, take a few questions, and then we'll talk a little bit about some resources that you can leverage if you would like to get more information. And pause for 1 second as we get into the chat window here and take a look at questions we've been receiving from the audience. Keith, thank you for helping to put these together so I can go through them quickly. One question here is an obvious one, and I would like to go ahead and take it first. This actually was a question that came up in both of the case studies that I went through before. As we start talking about hosting SaaS externally for a client, this is a different paradigm. SaaS has often been deployed internally. And some people have used systems that are hosted remotely that don't perform very well. And so the question we have here on chat that also came in those two case studies was, if this is a remote environment, how is it going to perform? Am I going to see keyboard latency? How do we know it won't be slow? This is a great question. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of expertise at DWise about how to build a SaaS environment that works. We have been to clients and seen environments that were built suboptimally and didn't work well. It's important to think about SaaS in the nature that it works. It's an analysis tool. It has computational needs, and it needs to be close to the data. So our system is set up as a remote desktop environment because it allows you to keep all of the data, all of the code, and all of the horsepower inside of the cloud environment we provide and just access it through a remotely provided desktop. So we minimize the amount of transfer that has to happen over the internet and make sure that the only thing going back and forth is the display. And as a consequence, every major corporation has adequate bandwidth to do remote desktop. And therefore, the performance is extremely compelling. When we were setting this up, our pilot test was actually to use one of our team based in Switzerland to access a server that's hosted in North Carolina. And the experience was just like their local experience, again, because the only thing that's being transferred over the internet is the desktop. The applications, the data, the code, and the execution are all happening on the remote system. And that provides a very high performance experience. So the next question we've got here is about adoption. So the question is, does DWise provide training? This is a good question too. DWise does provide training. We provide a couple of things with this platform. There's an onboarding for how to use our managed services, and there's a quick start guide for users. But we wanted this to be easy to adopt. So the platform you've seen described here today, it's a Windows-based environment for using SaaS. It's probably very much like the environment you're using now. You don't have to learn how to use Linux. You don't have to figure out a brand new connection interface like X Windows. It's remote desktop. It's a familiar thing. Most of the folks who are using SaaS on a day-to-day basis are going to find this environment is almost the same as everything they've used throughout their careers. And as a consequence, adoption is virtually seamless. They'll need to know how to log in. And if they have a problem, they'll need to know how to submit a ticket. We address both of those with quick start guides. And if you need more training, DWise is happy to provide it. One of the places we've provided a lot of training for folks is around CDISC standards. So if your team is looking for support on CDISC standards, this is an area we do actually provide some custom training for a number of clients. As I'm looking over this, sort of a related question is, does DWise provide help with other process or standards needs? DWise is a consulting firm. We've talked about the clinical acceleration platform here today. But our business as a consultancy takes us into a variety of places. So we do process optimization services. We do clinical standards services. And we do technology services, which is part of this clinical acceleration platform. We can also help you with de-identification. We can help you with regulatory compliance. So yes, DWise has a variety of services, and if you'd like to talk to us about things beyond the clinical acceleration platform, we'd be glad to have that conversation with you. Please just send us an email. This is a question that was certainly going to come up. So the clinical acceleration platform, how many clients does DWise presently do this for? This is kind of an obvious question, right? You've heard us introducing a new platform today, and everybody wants to not be first. I have a couple of case studies here to give you some evidence that there are people using the exact solution we've provided, but there's a lot more than what I showed on the screen. DWise has been in the hosting business for SaaS environments for the better part of the last decade. We have been hosting small SaaS environments that support 5 to 10 users, all the way up to complex SaaS grid deployments for analysis and modeling and simulation that support upwards of 1,000 users on a global basis. So on DWise hosted systems today, there are between 1,000 and 2,000 users at any given time. We've got a lot of history doing this, and we feel very confident that those years of expertise have been aligned into this system. We're kind of trying to make it easier for us and easier for you simultaneously. Question here about Ultra Edit. This must be somebody in the crowd who has a background as a programmer. Ultra Edit, for those who don't write SaaS code on a day-to-day basis, is an alternative editor, and it's not the only one. Some people like to write their SaaS code outside of SaaS. Ultra Edit is one of the ways you might do this. Slick Edit's another. Some people use Notepad, Notepad++. So if the question is, if I use Ultra Edit, can I use it in this system? And the answer is yes. So as I mentioned, this is not a closed system. If you'd like us to install Ultra Edit for you, you'd go to our web-based support platform, which is provided through that fully managed service. You'd open a ticket and say, I'd like to have Ultra Edit installed. We would put a change request in, go through our validation process to put that tool onto the system and execute the documentation that's required to make sure it was done correctly. And we turn around and tell you it's available. If you have a application that requires a commercial license, you'll either have to provide us that license, or we will negotiate with you to figure out the fee differential to accommodate it. The applications that come with the system, the licenses are provided. They're included in the cost. But if you wanted to add another tool, like a database or a simulation platform or a visualization tool, and those tools required a commercial license, you'd either have to provide that, or we would adjust the pricing schedule to reflect us providing it. So we got a couple of good questions here about infrastructure. We've used the word cloud a lot today, and folks are asking, is this public cloud? Is this AWS or Azure, or is it Google, or is it our own data center? And this is an important point. Cloud, true cloud, like you would get from Amazon Web Services or from Azure. This is a elastic facility where you get virtual machines, and you don't actually get fine-grained control over what's happening under the covers. And because SaaS is an expert system and the sort of work that life sciences does is very specialized, DWise feels it's critical to have that fine-grained control. So we are not using a cloud backend for this system. This is a data center that we own all of the compute assets, the servers, the storage, the backup appliances, the routing. We own all of the componentry, and our team puts it together in a fit-for-purpose way and make sure that it performs. That gives us the fine-grained control we need to make sure it's going to survive validation and audit concerns, and also make sure it's going to perform the way that you expect. A lot of times it's tough with these classic cloud providers to actually feel comfortable putting your clinical data on a system that you don't really know where it runs. And so with DWise, if you would like to fly into the Research Triangle Park in North Carolina and walk into our data center, we can take you over and show you the bare metal where your system actually lives. We also have the option of doing this in facilities that are in Europe. So it's entirely at the client's discretion whether the system may be based in the US or based in the EU. But in either case, the case is the same. You can come in and see our data center if you'd like. Just scanning through the questions here. Keith, let me know if you see anything else that
There is a question here about different SaaS users have differing access to various compounds and studies. Does DWise offer a way to manage this, or is it on your clients?
So that's a great question. So the environment it's a Windows-based environment, and folders inside of Windows have permissions. You have groups that can be set up. This is probably the way you're managing access to folders today. All those features exist because this is a Windows-based environment as well. So we can provision folders with appropriate permissions to support blinding and unblinding. We can provision folders to support external parties like a CRO accessing your system to load data in. We can do any number of things in this pattern. And if you would like to use our fully managed services to support that for you, again, you just log into the support desk and open up a ticket. Tell us what you'd like us to set up for you, and we'll set it up. Alternatively, we can let you set up folders and give the appropriate permissions to folks to make those decisions on the business side. So it's your choice about who manages the permissions, but DWise will absolutely do it for you if you would like.
Just another question here. I'm not sure that we can answer this right at the moment here, but it says we often analyze highly confidential data sets. Can we use the hosted SaaS environment but store the data sets on our infrastructure?
Yeah, the answer is yes, you can. But the way SaaS works, when you start to do analysis, it's going to copy the data over to do its work. It needs the data to be local when it executes. So we have a couple of clients that move data in as they start a study, and at the end of the study, they move data out. We have other clients that just store everything in the system, including their backups, in perpetuity. They don't have a secondary storage on their local networks inside of the company. And those clients actually have broadened this beyond just data management and biostatistics to be the full life cycle, as if it were an internally managed system. So a lot of the different functional groups have handoffs. Data comes in, it goes from group 1 to group 2 to group 3 to group 4. It can be a little bit of a bouncy experience if people don't know which drive, which system. You can put all of those users on this platform. You can map the storage directly to an externally hosted laptop. So it's your choice, but our recommendation would be that you put the data and the code on our systems. They are built with industry standard best practices for security. Our providers for the facilities, DWise has chosen because they are willing to support sort of the complicated applicable law around health data and the security and privacy concerns that come with that. So you can feel confident putting your data with DWise, but perhaps even more confident than putting it on your laptops, because your laptops, obviously you get on a train, you get on an airplane, there's always some risk that that laptop just gets taken. And a lot of sponsors actually have policies that you're not supposed to put your data on your laptop, but as we all know, that doesn't always happen. So this system gives you an option to put all of your data in one place, secure. If you want to map back to a local drive, you certainly can.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. We're running sort of out of time here. I want to assure everyone that we will answer all of the questions, and we'll send out a summary of the questions and answers to all of the attendees and registrants of the webinar. But I wanted to just give you a minute or two, Stephen, to point out some of the resources that we can send people to.
Absolutely. Thanks, Keith. So a few quick things here. We have a website where you can come and get similar information to what you heard today. If you Google for DWise Clinical Acceleration Platform, you'll find the link at the top of this page. You can send us an email, sales@dwise.com, and you'll get one of our team to respond to you quickly, and we can engage in a conversation, perhaps even set up a demo or come talk with you and your team. Our life sciences practice and our leadership team are regularly publishing thought leadership on our blog and addressing trends in the industry. So if you'd like to be part of that conversation, you can visit our blog or even sign up. And we do have resources on our website, including case studies about hosting and case studies about other services that we offer, CDISC standards, SaaS modernization, de-identification, and transparency. You can find those resources on our website in the menus, or you can go directly to them, dwise.com/resources. And as I mentioned before, we will be at BioIT in May, and we will be doing regional events over the remainder of 2017. And we'll be publishing that schedule on our website so that you can sign up. And we'll come to your town and do an event similar to the one we had today, but a little bit more interactive because we won't all be on mute. And we'll be able to network and talk about the challenges everybody's facing and how systems like this can help solve them. So Keith, I think we are right at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody who's joined us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to join DWISE and SAS and talk about how the MASP program and DWISE's expertise have been brought together here to deliver a fit-for-purpose solution. If you're thinking about how to get an analysis environment for your team and how you can do that quickly and be future-proofed with scale, DWISE would really like to be part of that conversation at your organization. So please do reach out to us and bring us in to talk.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone. I believe that concludes our webinar for today. We look forward to hearing from you soon.